there, guys. I have something a little different planned for this lesson. Instead of writing code from scratch for these exercises, you're going to be adapting an existing open source project. And the reason for that is I'm trying to make these things as close to life in the real world as a programmer as possible. And the reality is, a vast majority of the time as a programmer, you end up working on what we call legacy code. And legacy code is just code that's been written in the past. The opposite of legacy code is green fields. And we love a bit of that because it usually means you get to choose your tools and you're starting off fresh and you can make it all beautiful. But the reality is that you probably end up doing this maybe about 10% of the time or less. And then legacy code, 80%. Well, then there's, jazz like meetings and then, I don't know, non-code stuff, which actually is more like 20%. This is what your life's gonna look like. 70. A lot. Anyway, so that's why I thought it would be cool to give you guys some experience with that. Alright, so the project that I've chosen is called Everest, and I've got it here on my GitHub. I've adapted it a little bit to make it easy for you to run repositories. But it comes from this guy. See, you can see that I forked it from Rohit. This is his project called Everest. And I'll be telling you a bit about how it works and stuff in a moment. But first I want to get it up and running. So you guys should grab this, clone it, and then import it into your Eclipse the same way you did with the JavaFX base as a Maven project. I've already done that. Here you can see the little blue M. I'm going to tidy this up just to make it a bit clearer. So what I've got here are 5 projects that are within my existing working set. You can edit those here. I've seen some of you guys have a whole ton of projects down the side, and if you want to limit it, you make it what's called a working set. So this is my recording working set, and I'm just going to get rid of everything that's not Everest for the moment. Okay, so we've got a little Maven project, and I'm going to see what I can sort of tell about this code just by looking at it and by playing with it a little bit. The first thing that's a bit weird, I guess, for you might be, do you see these little arrows? Those are telling me that there's a difference between what I have here and what is in the repository, the masterhead repository. And then so I thought I'd maybe show you how this works because I use it a good bit. It's kind of useful. So now that you're pros at using Git from the command line, I'm going to show you some easier ways to do it possibly. So here's the README. This has the instructions of what you're going to do with this project, and it's got a little crocodile thing over here. So that tells me that it's different, it's not synchronized with the master repository. So I can right click it and then see what the difference is with compare to head revision. And then that will, in a nice, easy to read way, show me what has changed. So this is blue, that's a change, and then this stuff has been added. And then if I wanted to commit this, which I'm going to do now, I can just right click and say team commit, and then put my little message over here, and added instructions for exercises. And I'm going to just do commit and push. Okay, I maybe didn't do this way before, so I gotta put my username and password in, store that. Okay, so that's telling me it push to Everest origin. I'm just gonna make sure, because I haven't done it like that in a while. And then I can see added instructions for exercises. That was the last thing that was added. Okay, so that's a tiny little bit about how you can use Git within Eclipse. Now let's take a look at the structure of this code. Okay, so what I'm seeing here, there are two packages. This is standard. You'd have a source package and you usually have test like that. And I'm seeing a whole bunch of packages. They are related to, there's a lot related to controllers here, some standard stuff, exceptions and logging, some models. Hopefully this is ringing a bell with you from what I was talking about earlier, which is MVC. And MVC stands for Model View Controller. And this is it's called a design pattern. And that's just a way of structuring code, kind of like we sometimes call it an architecture. This comes up frequently in interview questions, which is why I'm talking about it now. So here you can see that there's a bunch of controllers. And then I've got some models. And there's nothing necessarily called out as view, but I'm going to show you that in a second. So model MVC, model view controller, it's a standard thing. I'm just gonna, I had something up here earlier I wanted to show you. Java. Because I sometimes don't have all the lingo, but I know what these things mean. All right, so here's a good description. So the model represents an object or Java POJO carrying data. POJO means plain old Java object. And a plain old Java object is an object that just has data in it and it doesn't have, at least not very much intelligence or logic in it. It's just a data carrier. Examples that we might have seen of that are like when we were making a minion class that just had like a name and whatever. They generally don't have methods that do anything apart from accessors, so getters and setters. That's what a POJO is. So that's what a model is. It transports data. It's a container for data. A view, that is the front end, so that's going to be the layout and how it looks. And then the controller kind of goes between those two things. The controller does things like it intercepts user input and then figures out what to do with it. And it's kind of like the mediator. And it's sort of like the brain of this design pattern. Okay, so let's go look at this code. There's a bunch of controllers because they're really like the main deal. And you can kind of get to understand what the app is doing even before we look at it just by looking at the controllers. There's something doing searching. There's a highlighter, which is, see, there's XML, plain text highlighter. These seem to be probably doing syntax highlighting. And I would imagine that highlighter is, yep, that's an interface. You've got a compute highlighting, and then you've got a highlighter factory, which will create the different highlighters. And then you have 3 different types, and they all extend, they all implement the interface highlighter. Okay, so there's that, and then, you can look around here. I'm not going to do a very good job of explaining it off the cuff. But just to know that a controller is that sort of middleman and generally does the bulk of the work. Okay, so those are controllers, models. There's a few of these in here. Okay, that's not doing a whole lot. Yeah, they're pretty basic. And then the view part I did want to show you. So in this project and in a lot of JavaFX projects, we use the fxml to do the layout, and in this project it's in here in resources, fxml, and then Rohit's done quite a nice job of splitting out the different panes that are in the app. I'm going to run it now so you can have a look and see what I'm talking about. Okay, so I've set it up so it'll run the same way as the base project that we were working on last lesson. So you go to launcher and then play that, and then that will load all of this code. It will give us a starting point. Over here you can see my Java cup. That's where the app is actually loading. It's not as fast as before because it's actually a bit more hefty. Okay, so what I'm saying with these, having these fxml pieces broken out, body tab, I would imagine, is possibly this, and header tab is maybe that. History is over here. What else do we have? Home window, URL tab. So you could kind of guess which pieces are which. I'm going to show you some better ways to do it even. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to see if I can show you what the paint of this thing looks like. So these FXML files, you saw them before because we were working with them. They just show you where all of the pieces are laid out, the buttons and the nodes and the components and stuff. And then along with that, it's good to have separate some CSS, which is cascading style sheet. And that is sort of like the paint that goes on top of these things. So it's like the color and that sort of thing. I'm opening this CSS file. I already was in here doing something, so I know this is the one that's being used. Though sometimes there are a few, so you might have to play around and see which one is actually the one, or find out where it's being loaded, find out the where you can see the file being loaded. Anyway, I'm going to try and change something, a color here. So let's do this. This will do dashboard FX background color. I'm not going to overwrite it because I might want it back. I'm going to comment out the CSS, and you do that with the usual Java thingies. Comment, syntax. Oh, what did I do? All right, cool. My computer's overheating. I'm in Mexico at the moment. All right, so I'm just saving that for later, and then I'm going to see if I can make this green for Ireland. Okay, I'm over here quitting. I could do quit here, or I could use that red square to stop the previous version. Because I've made a change, I need to restart it. Okay, and now at least part of this is a pretty nasty green color. Oh, the reason that it has these numbers is these are HTML colors, and you can look those up online and make it pretty. So if you guys would like to have a go of playing around and changing the colors, feel free to do that. That's not the bulk of the exercises that I have coming up though. I just want you to really see where the distinction between what I call the paint, that's the style sheet, the style, and then the layout, that's the FXML, or if you were doing it like the manual way before, that would also be considered to be view. So view is FXML plus the CSS, and then you can see the model and the controllers, they're actually called that here. Okay, I think I'm going to move on to what this thing actually does, but you know this green is pretty nasty, so I'm just going to take that out. So it's a project that Rohit has made to be like Postman. Postman is a tool that you can use to see what's happening between your web service calls. And a web service call is it's how you access an API online. I'm going to show you an example. This one. Okay, so Alpha Advantage, they provide an API that gives you stock prices. So I'm going to try and use Everest. If they have an example down here, I'm going to grab this, I'm going to put it into Everest, and then Everest is going to go hit the web service and bring me back a response. Okay, so this is telling me the value of this Microsoft MS, I think that's Microsoft. And it's telling you that this is today, and there's the low and the high and whatever the stock information. All right, so we can use this to make these sorts of calls, and that's what we're going to be doing. The reason that actually I started with that blue marble thing is because I was playing with this Everest, and then I started looking for an API that I liked, and then I came upon these NASA APIs. So I'm going to show you how you can run it. I went to NASA API listing, and then okay, down here are all the different things. So I think I used Epic for the Blue Marble project. Wow, APOD, astronomy picture of the day. Ooh, well, isn't that stunning? All right, so I guess what this is doing is it's going to give me a new photo every day. That's lovely. Okay, I'm gonna grab this and see if I can get it to run in my Everest. No, delete everything first. Send. No API key. I have an API key actually. That's because I registered it when we were doing the blue marble. Okay, now I have my API key. I'm going to put it in here. Now the way web services work, or web queries, are like this is the URL, and then you put a little question mark before you put these key value pairs. This is the key and this is the value of my API key. Also, looks like you can put it in here as parameters. This is taking its time. So I waited for that a little while, and it turns out that the web service is no bueno. I got this message back saying service unavailable. So, oh well, no APOD. Looked pretty nice. But we have other APIs that we can test with. Asteroids, Neows, Space Rocks team. Retrieve a list of asteroids based on their closest approach date to Earth. All right. Sounds cool. Here's an example of how you would use the web service. I'm just going to copy that and I'm going to paste it in here. See what we get. Alright, so some links, element count 22 near Earth objects. That looks cool. Okay, but we're not really here for the details. I just want you to sort of know how to work this Everest thing, and so how you can tell whether it's working properly. So we have web service endpoints. I've been clicking them like crazy over here, and we're going to make some modifications to this app itself. So the first thing is, this was an error, or there was an error back there, but this red was kind of drawing my attention as if it was the error. This is where you click if you want to pull up something that you tried before. It's a history. So I would like you guys to change the color of this get to another color that's not red, because red for me means problem. And I'm going to, before sending you off to do that, I'm going to give you some tips on how to work on legacy code. And I guess the key thing, the way I do it anyway, is to find a thread that helps you connect how the thing is working, like here, its functionality, to the code behind it. And usually I start with a sort of a view item. I'm going to show you what it would be like to find out what's going on behind this send button. So I use this a ton. There's a search feature in Eclipse. You go to search there and file. And then I'm going to search for send, which is not that guy, but this guy. See, it's all in capitals, so I reckon there's going to be a label somewhere there that's going to say send. Okay, it's important that you take a look at these things. I want it to check case sensitive because it should show up like that. And you could say usually the enclosing project would be what you would want. I was using working set recording, but otherwise it will show all the stuff from all your other projects, and that would be slow and annoying. Okay, so what it's telling me down here is that it's found this send string and it's in dashboard.fxml, and then if I click on this it will take me directly to that place. Okay, so here I have a button is being defined and it says that the text is send. So the next thing I'd usually do is verify that I have the right spot. And since this is text, I'm just going to put a kiss in there and save it and see if it changes like I would expect. I'm running it again. Anytime you make a change, you have to rerun it. Okay, I've got send and a little kiss after it, so I know that I'm in the right spot. And then I'm going to work back from here. So in my button, you can see I've got an on action, and this is going to be what gets called once the send button is clicked. So I've selected that, and now I'm going to go search for that in the code. So because I selected it, it's happy with that, and I'm just going to do search. Okay, so I've got a couple of options down here. 2 controllers, that sounds promising. Dashboard controller, home window controller. I can get a preview of what's in there. So I'm going to go for this dashboard controller because it doesn't have the same level of indirection that this one does. It looks like this one's delegating to that one. Okay, so here's a method that could be the one. So I'm still yet again going to check to see if I'm in the right spot. I'm going to print out. This is the name of the class that I'm in, dashboard controller. So hopefully when I click on it, I'm going to close it. If I click on it, it will then print that out, and then I will be starting to sort of understand where I am in this labyrinth of code. Okay, we need to be able to see the console and the button. All right, let's try it. Okay, so it said there in dashboard controller, so I know I'm in the right spot. And then I can start to figure out what's happening back here. So it's checking it's going to add HTTPS if it's not on there. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of stuff, but what I just wanted to show you was how you might use this search feature to start to find the place that you want in the code. Alright, so the things that you're going to be looking at are related to this is the history pane, so that's a little bit of a clue as to where you might find this. But it's really a matter of exploration, and the thing about these exercises is you'll be spending a lot of time exploring and investigating and not that much time writing any actual code, but that's okay. That's actually what real programming life is like. So those are the first 2 exercises I have planned, and then the next thing is going to be a little more intense, but I reckon you can handle it because of the project you just did with the blue marble, is that I want to add a button that clears the results from the history pane. So now these are all getting jammed up. I would like a button so that I could just click and then they all go away. So those are your exercises. Good luck. Talk to you soon.